Hello, college football fans. Welcome to the voice of college football, Mark Rogers TV. I am Mike Lovell, guest hosting from Last Word on collegefootball.com. Absolute domination, a bludgeoning by the Bay as the Clemson Tigers absolutely dominate the Alabama Crimson Tide 44-18 in Nick Saban's worst loss in his time at Tuscaloosa. Clemson and Dabo Swinney capture their second national title in 2 years. I'm joined by Jason Priester and Grant Matheny from Shaken in the Southland, SB Nation's Clemson blog, and Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama. Gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. How about y'all?
I'm sure
Jason are doing pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure Jason and Grant are doing pretty good. Stephen M. We'll let you address that in a little bit. All right, well, we'll start off. Jason, we'll start with you. What surprised you most about Clemson's dominant performance tonight?
The play of the offensive line. I thought they might struggle to block Alabama's front four, especially when they started to bring pressure. I thought Quentin Williams would be much more of a problem than he turned out to be. That to me was the biggest thing by far. Lawrence had all day to throw the ball.
Stephen M. Smith, what about you? Alabama had some drop passes, some penalties, poor special teams, and some uncharacteristic mental lapses. What are Bama fans going to be most disappointed about tonight's loss?
Just getting outplayed and outcoached, Mike. Just getting outplayed and outcoached. You don't tip Nick Saban team and you got Swinney credit. I mean, those came up. We said we're going to confuse Tua, sure him. We're going to give him different looks from our secondary job. Exceptions. One, of course, was a pick six, and just really taking Alabama early. I mean, you thought for Alabama football, the tide would have been built off that, but quickly trying to get through throws. Well, Tagovailoa down points. He tries so hard to go after the big play, the big bomb. Time instead of gives him trust in the run game in front of you, and when you're for the big bomb, opposition plays off that. So you got to give Brenton Venables a lot of credit for cheated to outcoached tonight.
Yeah, we'll ask Grant about that in a little bit. Grant, what did you see tonight that surprised you the most from the Clemson Tigers?
Yeah, I'm going to say the defensive side of the ball. I thought that Clemson was going to be a lot more vulnerable to the Alabama wide receivers, and I was pretty impressed by how they were able to kind of limit the big plays of Alabama tonight.
Yeah, certainly. Stephen, let's flip it back to you. Alabama had a terrible time in the red zone. I think they had 1 TD in 4 red zone attempts. What was the issue for the Tide in the red zone in the evening?
I think number one is not getting enough penalty, and then number two, really not trusting the run. You saw a couple of times in the red zone, the play calling, and I necessarily wants to use schemes, but when you're down there in the red area, your offensive heavy packages in there. Football for the first 11 of 12 years that Nick's coach, this was a program that had a lot of pride in running the football. And if Tua Tagovailoa in here, you're trying to be different, but when you get down inside for 20 and that field shrinks able to trust your guys to get a hand, run the football, and get into on the big problems, and along with again, give Clemson credit. Wilson Wilkins, Cleveland Farrell, Austin Bryant, Joseph, these guys all came back for a shot to win a national championship after what happened last year in the Sugar Bowl. And when you have those guys being denied, they are doing everything possible to shut down. Credit. Those a play in the game, Mike. I think you saw this where Christian will Marine through a block from Alex Leatherwood. Leatherwood is 6', 320 through Alex Leatherwood and sticks Damian Harris in the backfield for a red zone. So when you have that, there's tap off to those guys.
Yeah, you talk about getting out-coached under Nick Saban. In 11 years, Alabama has 15 total losses. In the past 10 years, only 12 losses. Of those 15 losses in 11 years, only 5 of those losses were by double digits or more, the most being 14 points 3 times. The Utah in the 2010 Sugar Bowl, South Carolina, and Oklahoma in the 2014 Sugar Bowl as well. They lose by 20, do the quick math, 26 tonight, 26-point loss, almost double the worst loss they've had in the Nick Saban era. Grant, back to you. Steven talked about getting out-coached. Brent Venables on the defensive side stymied the Heisman finalist Tua Tagovailoa all game long. What did Brent Venables do that prevented Alabama's offense from doing what they've done every game this season?
Yeah, I think he stayed true to what he was doing all season. That was bringing pressure. I know me and Jason talked about that we were a little bit worried before the game that he was going to try to bring too much pressure and that would allow the Alabama wide receivers to get open downfield. But he really got too uncomfortable today, and that really allowed the defensive backs to have more time in coverage and just got after Tua, made him uncomfortable all night.
Yeah, certainly there was a lot of pressure on Tagovailoa all night. Jason, on offense, let's flip it. Let's look at the Clemson offense. Even as they were fairly one-dimensional, they only had 40 yards rushing up until about 6 minutes left in the game, and then Etienne had a big rush, and then the last drive of the game, Trevor Lawrence had several rushes up the middle. They only had 40 yards rushing, about 6 minutes to go in the game. Even one-dimensionally, they were still able to rout a vaunted Nick Saban defense. How did they accomplish that? What so many teams in the past have not been able to do, even as they were pretty much one-dimensional all night long.
I'm as surprised as anybody that they were able to do that as one-dimensional as they were, because I watched the game with my dad, and that was one of the first things I pointed out to him after halftime, how little they had tried to run the ball. But I think it just comes down to having a quarterback that has the accuracy that Lawrence has, and the offensive line giving him time to hit those playmaking receivers down the field. I thought if Clemson was going to win, they were going to need to hit chunk plays, lots of them down the field, and Lawrence would have to have time to hit them. And that's exactly what they did. And kudos to that offensive line, because they played their rear ends off tonight.
Certainly Clemson had success at all with all the units out there. Jason, tell us where we can find you and your work on social media and on the internet.
ShakingTheSouthland.com. I've been there about a year now.
What about you, Grant? Where can we find you on social media?
Same site. Post lots on there. Good content. So definitely go check it out.
Make sure you check them out at ShakingInTheSouthland.com. You're listening to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I am Mike Lovell from Last Word on CollegeFootball.com, guest hosting tonight. Steven, how did Alabama's struggles on special teams change the in-game strategy for the Crimson Tide coaching staff? Alabama missed a field goal, missed an extra point, had a botched fake field goal, had a kick out of bounds. They just looked terrible on special teams. Did that affect the in-game strategy for the Crimson Tide coaching staff?
Quite a bit, and especially when Joseph and Austin Jones extra points. I think it was 9 or 10 missed extra points this season. So when you're not making mix, and then a lot of times the last 2 games, not just this game, but again, both of us on the kickoffs, leaving short of the goal, Clemson's clock is there. When you're not having success on special teams, you came in thinking that try for the field goal, but you fake it with Mac Jordan, Danny's runner. If you're gonna fake it, at least cover it, but you're using a guy that's not known string quarterback. So most definitely special teams put a role being effective. Just in this game, Alabama couldn't get anything. They didn't choose to throw Jalen Hill too late. And I know I talked about, but Justin Ross, what a game by from heavily recorded and in recruiting cycle. Didn't Alabama end up getting him? Because he loves the program. Sweeney provided him, and a guy that comes out there. What a game! We're talking a game high 153 yards receiving. Had some catches where that kid looked like Hooley mega trabs, run stabbing balls. Justin Ross, big ups to that kid.
Yeah, he had a great game. I believe the only other top recruit out of the state of Alabama that got away from the Crimson Tide was Jameis Winston. They're on the recruiting trails as well. Stephen, interested in your thoughts. Did you get any feedback from the fans? Thoughts on Santa Clara as host of the national championship game? It was kind of a storyline coming into the game tonight.
I mean, when you talk about it, you have Southeastern region, and you have to go all the way to the west across the game. Definitely the fans didn't like it. Of a tickets there were a lot of complaints of, well, if this game was in Texas, if it was in New Orleans, Atlanta, South, they had much more support from the fan base. But at the end of the day, you still have to play the football game. And Alabama, a Nick Saban team get out coached. You don't see a Nick Saban team get beat by almost 30 points. You don't see a staff look confused, befuddled, defeated, completely bad. You saw Nick Saban completely bad. And there'd be a lot of internal thinking, if I can say that term, the offseason, because this does not coming out of Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, you talked about getting out coached. You look at that fake field goal. Everybody in the stadium knew it was coming. Dan Enos, the quarterback's coach and the on-field offensive guy, talked to the kicker and the holder for about 30 seconds before they went out there. A couple of very uncharacteristic lapses for Alabama. You talked about the offseason. Let's talk about that. What does Alabama look like going into 2019? Of course, they'll have Tonga Viola back. They'll have Judy back, some of their key players on that explosive offense. But where does Alabama go for this? And normally, one game really doesn't change the course of a program. But for Alabama, having been on top for so long, getting beat like this might be a blow to that program. Is this a one-time aberration? Or is this a signaling of the changing of the guard or a signaling of the crumbling of the Alabama dynasty? What does Alabama look like in 2019, Stephen M. Smith?
First and foremost, they have a strong recruiting class coming in. The number about to sign 30 guys. A ton of 4 and 5 stars on both the offense have been something that Nick Saban definitely wanted to address. You lose Mike Locke. He's going to lose Butch Jones to Maryland also. I think he's going to sign the next couple of days or so. Also, Joe Panunzio could possibly be moved to an off-field role of the running backs coach. Times this year, as I've been in practice, the running backs have not been able to connect the dots with Coach P that they were able to do with Burton Burns in past years. Not saying it's terrible, but Burton Burns has been there so long, and those guys know who he is. They know the kind of character and quality of the position. It's very different going to Coach P. So Coach P very much off field. Brent Key, offensive line coach, be on the look for him now, accepting the job at Georgia Georgia Tech after the playoffs. I know he came out denying had any type of conversation with him, but according to guys I know, so I've been told that Nick Saban and have not been on the same years, and basically Nick Saban telling them you might want to go look for a different job. Seeing how Alabama has not been able to truly run the football the way it's been in years past, concerns of Key more than likely taking that job to Georgia Tech, but Alabama brings back a lot next season. The question here, though, Mike, is Tosh Lapoy go and Mac Wilson. Tosh Lapoy, your defensive coordinator, Pete Oden, your co-DC, and Mac Wilson, one of your top linebacker. It's been a roller coaster year for all three of those guys. Tosh Lapoy, you're going from being an elite recruiter, a position coach, to now running Nick Saban's defense as a D coordinator. It has not been easy for him, and you saw it tonight. At moments, Lapoy looked kind of confused. Players in the field looked kind of confused, kind of lost. Pete Golding, the same thing. Though he's called defenses before at University of Texas San Antonio, this is a different monster coming to Alabama. And there were at moments where he kind of looked confused. Mac Wilson has been up and down somewhat all season. So those three, can they tighten things up in the offseason, come back, game plan? The Alabama secondary tonight got picked at a bit. Deontay Thompson, Savion Smith went down with an injury. Patrick Surtain II. How does it bounce back next year with some guys being back healthy? You lose some guys, but then how will Alabama's resolve be after the players coming back and the new guys coming in? That's what I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah, over to you, Jason. Kind of same thing. Clemson starts out with a close win at Texas A&M to start the season. They switched quarterbacks 4 games into the season. They survived the scare against Syracuse, and they finished the season with this dominating performance. You look at that Clemson roster, the last 4 national championships belong to Clemson, Alabama, 2 of the last 3 to Clemson. You look at that Clemson roster, Jason, with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Ross, just like Stephen M. Smith talked about, with a fantastic game. Freshman Travis Etienne, Amari Rogers, T. Higgins. That offense is loaded. You got to think Dabo's not going anywhere. Brent Venables is not going anywhere. He's staying at Clemson. Troy Elliott, maybe he's there, maybe he's not. But that roster looks real good for 2019. What's going to stop Clemson in 2019 from winning another national championship?
Well, there's going to be a lot of turnover on the defense. I mean, of course, about the whole defensive line is going to be moving on. But they've recruited well, especially defensive ends. They'll have to have some tackles step up, be the run stoppers that Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins have been the last couple of years. Niles Pinckney, George, those 2 guys played a lot this year. Those are 2 guys that might step into those roles, and then we got to have better safety pad this year. I was worried about safety play coming into the night. They got burned a couple times early, but we got a lot of DBs coming, a lot of safety help coming in this recruiting class. I don't know where it's going to finish ranked at. Somewhere in the top 10, big class. Might be Dabo's biggest class since he's been at Clemson. I think it is. I'd have to double check that. But very heavy on DBs, safeties. So I think we'll be okay there, but I don't see Clemson falling off anytime in the next year or 2.
That offense is going to be able to cover for a lot of mistakes on the defensive side. You are watching Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I am Mike Lovell from lastwordoncollegefootball.com, guest hosting our coverage of the 2019 national championship game. An absolutely surprising and dominant performance by the Clemson Tigers to claim their 2nd national title in 3 years, 3rd national title in program history out in Santa Clara. A great night for Clemson Tigers fans. This game was not in doubt from midway through the 2nd quarter on. Joined by Jason Priester and Grant Matheny from Shaking in the Southland, SB Nation's Clemson blog. Check them out on Twitter at JP_Priester and at Grant F. Matheny. Also joined by Stephen M. Smith from Touchdown Alabama. Check him out on Twitter at Coaching M. Smith. Again, you've been watching Mark Rogers TV. Please take a minute, check out the site, and subscribe to our broadcast, adding new members every day. Thank you. Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you viewers for watching. Have a great evening.